Welcome to another episode of Breaking Into Cybersecurity Leadership, where we talk to leaders in the cybersecurity field about how they got there and how they can develop the next generation of leaders. Today, we have Giles, who will be talking about his experience in a very interesting field and how he became a cyber leader. Giles, do you want to give a little bit of an intro about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I currently run the information security function for the Premier League. Prior to that, I was a contractor and moved around through a fair range of clients. And prior to that, I was in fact an army officer, British Army. So I have some fairly strong views about leadership. Going from military to civilian life has made me learn a lot very quickly, in fact.
Let's touch on that. What do you see are the differences between leadership in the military and in civilian life, and what do you have to do to adjust to that?
I think when I was in the army, I imagined I knew a lot about soft skills, and actually I very much did not. You're given a lot of formulas and a lot of fixed ways to deal with things in the military. And actually I found getting out and working with civilians was scary in that the possibility of being able to do anything. There's no limit. There's no defined rules as such. So when you're put in leadership situations, you're suddenly thrown into actually using some real soft skills, which, was a bit of a surprise to me. Yeah.
And so you transitioned out of the military. I'm guessing you started as an individual contributor. Why did you decide to become a leader again?
That's an interesting one. I think my wife would say because I was convinced that I could do it better. I think I'm potentially not quite that egotistical. I've always had a drive to try and go forwards, however you want to define that. So if you're not improving and progressing, I feel like you're going backwards. I don't feel like standing still is an option. So as I've retrained, requalified, and gained the experience that I need, I've always wanted to progress, run my own team, and have a little bit more say in the day-to-day running of how my life works, I think. So potentially I am a control freak.
So you mentioned retrained, requalified. What do you think are some of those critical skills for a cybersecurity leader to have?
So what I've been constantly surprised by is the technical side matters much less than I thought it would. I say that I spent 18 months studying for my CIS. It's not that I have to pull those skills out of the bag day to day. Actually, it's the ability to sit down and problem solve, analyze things, and then deal with people outside of information security. I very rarely have meetings where I'm going to sit down with a bunch of other information security specialists and just talk information security stuff. It's working with legal, the people team, finance, whoever's involved, and explaining what seem like simple concepts to you in plain English to other people who have other specialisms, essentially.
Part of that sounds like there's a lot of communication that needs to occur. How important of a skill is that? And how do you rate yourself from 1 to 5 on that?
So it's absolutely critical. Yeah, without a doubt. Small team communication, wider communication outside your team, letting people know what's going on. I found that I'm very comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's why security fits for me. But I have to remember that other people are not, and security makes people deeply uncomfortable. The idea of an incident or something happening. So that communication, just letting them know, even if nothing's happened, that's a good day in the office for most people. And it's okay to just say, so we've had nothing to do today and that's gone really well, thanks. But I'd probably put myself, I'll sit on the fence and go a solid 3 out of 5. So I'm fine until I get really laser focused on something, and then I'll disappear down a rabbit hole. And so my boss is very good at saying, you are doing that thing. Of course I'm doing things. We could do with an update. Yeah, that I think that's definitely a thing coming out of the military. I was taught to never say anything unless I had something to tell people, as opposed to civilian life is much more collaborative. You just let people know what you're doing, what's going on, how's it all going. Whereas would never do that out of habit, I think.
But you mentioned collaboration. That's one of the other areas I like to dive down into. How would you rate yourself on collaboration on 1 to 5? And why is it such a critical skill?
I'm a good, maybe a 2. Collaboration is still something I'm definitely working on. I love working with other people.
Why is it such an important skill?
So no one person ever has the answer to any problem that I've come across in security. When you want to, if you're taking that risk-led approach and you're trying to mitigate a risk, quite often you don't own all the levers that can be pulled to mitigate that risk. And you need to do that in collaboration with people across IT, outside of IT. It may be that you can, if you're transferring risk and you're going cyber insurance, then you're definitely having a chat with finance about it. That there's a whole world of, and the nice thing about taking that collaborative approach is that someone looks at it from a completely different point of view to you. I spend a lot of time working with our office services manager who's been there, done that in large buildings. So when we're talking about physical security, he has a wealth of experience and just views things in a very different way. I think when you're in security, you tend to focus very much on the problem is the security risk, and you can forget about user experience, people just wanting to come to work and get on with their lives. And it is good to have just common sense voice when you're thinking these things through.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier was that there's no one person that can answer everything. So with that, how do you delegate? How strong are you in delegation in regards to 1 to 5? And why is that such an important skill?
I'm pretty good as a delegator. I'll give myself a 4. It's a common saying from British military is delegate until it hurts and then delegate some more. And it's about being comfortable with the discomfort of it. I really believe heavily in delegating the whole task and the responsibility, and you remain accountable for it, or whichever way around you'd like to cut responsible and accountable. But I think the thing is, with that delegation, you've got to give people enough rope to hang themselves and keep checking in, let people go away. And when I say delegate the whole task, it might not be done in the way you would have liked it. But if you give people the end state they need to achieve and any parameters, and it helps you think through your communication style as well, where you may well think that things are implied, but you need to make sure you're explicit about certain things. And delegation also it's really important in developing your team. If you hang on to every bit of control, no one else learns. You never see people come on, develop someone who's going to be that second in command, that chief of staff that's going to take a lot of weight off your back and help you out. Yeah. So it's a quick way to lead a burnout, I think, is a lack of delegation.
Well, you mentioned that you often have to work with different lines of the business. How important would you consider influence as a skill for cyber leaders?
I'd probably put that one top of the list. Out of everything we've discussed, they're all key skills, but your ability to influence across the business, and in my role, we'll regularly deal with other businesses, but I need to be able to influence how they go about doing their information security. And I've got no whip to crack on that. It's all, this is a good idea, make people see the benefit and try and carry them along with you. And that's, I think information security is a particularly cynical industry. People are constantly dealing with vendors who promise the world and it's not quite what they see. So when you're telling them that you've got a good idea, usually the answer from anyone I say that to is, oh yeah, show me. You have to prove your point. So that influence is really at the heart of soft skills that you need. And yeah, it can be a struggle. There's almost a salesy aspect to it, no matter what line you're in.
So one of the things that you mentioned is you have to work with different lines of business, different businesses. I'm assuming that there's a certain networking that also needs to occur so that you have experts that you can reach out to when you need to. How important is networking within cybersecurity?
It's personally coming out of the army and reskilling and retraining. It's been absolutely critical. Being able to ring someone, drop someone an email and just say, "Oh, I've got this opportunity. Does it sound good to you? Does that sound like a reasonable thing that would happen?" Whilst you gather your experience, you understand these scenarios, and then being able to reciprocate that back and help other people get in. I was going to say younger people, but it's almost irrelevant actually. It's whoever's coming in needs that help and advice. And the more people you help, bigger your network. So when it comes to it, you have that to fall back on, because no one's experience is limitless and covers everything.
So you mentioned it's not just young people, it's anyone. What advice would you give to future cybersecurity leaders?
Look in the places you wouldn't think to find people. I don't know if it's transmitted across the pond, but during lockdown here, the Prime Minister cracked out that everyone should be reskilling to cybersecurity and was heavily derided for it as a ridiculous premise on how people were going to find work whilst they were furloughed. But the background almost doesn't matter. The more diverse, the better. So someone's coming in from HR is going to have a real understanding of how people work and what works for people, and that be able to help you with that human risk element, whatever the background. And the age is irrelevant as well. Everyone's got something to offer. And I've been stunned how closed-minded people can be about, "Oh, you haven't done 10 years on a service desk, so you can't possibly understand how you're going to support someone having a security incident on a laptop." Yeah. Okay. In those 10 years, did you ever touch any EDR tools? "Oh, no, I wasn't allowed to do that." In which case, you've got zero relevant experience apart from you're fairly nifty at remote support. I think people imagine they start on the back foot, but actually everyone's probably starting from about the same baseline.
Just one last question. You're in a very popular field supporting a very popular sport. What are some of the challenges that come along with that?
So the level of visibility is something I probably wasn't ready for when I took the job. So the perfection that you have to achieve, and so you say, you have a discussion with the business leader and say, which ones are we prioritizing out of confidentiality, integrity, and availability? The answer is all of them. The level you're performing to is much higher than I imagined, but at the same time, they carry through that. Working in sport seems to carry through into the office, in that you're expected to work together as a team. Right? Everyone's trying the hardest all the time. So but it does come with some rather strange challenges, like people flying drones in stadiums that I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, someone always wants a better view.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on to Breaking Into Cybersecurity Leadership and sharing your advice. And feel free to share this with others. And for those breaking into the field, if you have a great story, feel free to reach out as well. And thank you for everyone joining us today.
Thanks very much.